Well, good afternoon, everybody. Time right now is 1:53 on Sunday afternoon, and I am looking at another situation where there could be another round of some pretty significant severe weather once again across the deep south. Now, I do realize that a lot of my viewers that follow me are in Texas and Oklahoma. By no means am I taking my focus off of this area to focus on other areas. But when we don't have severe weather here, I am going to watch for storms in other parts of the country. I actually wish now, kind of looking back, that I would have done a little more coverage of that event on Friday night. We did have a little, I did have a little bit on here, but I wish I would have been on a little bit more. I just want the people to get the information. And I do realize there are great sources of weather over in Mississippi, some really good meteorologists over there. You've got plenty of people streaming it these days. You got some great storm chasers. But I do want to try to embark on a journey where I do follow weather a little more closely, serious weather that is, a little more closely in other parts of the country as well. I got access to all these storm chasers. We can really, really do a good job of not only getting the word out there and also trying to help save lives, but we can also do a better job of raising awareness in other parts of the country, what's going on. Those people in Mississippi, and thanks for asking, my family not impacted by this. I do know of people that had family and friends impacted by it. Little town of Rolling Fork. And I'll get to the weather situation here in just a moment. Little town of Rolling Fork over there in Mississippi. It's in the Delta. And if you're familiar, and a lot of people are familiar with Vicksburg, because when you're traveling, going to some of your favorite beach destinations over there in Florida or whatnot, a lot of times you drive along 20 and go right through Vicksburg. And Rolling Fork is probably about, I'd say maybe 30, 45 minutes northeast of Vicksburg, Mississippi. And probably kind of maybe an hour, maybe or less, just northwest of Jackson. There's a little town there in the Delta, and it's a farming community, and it was completely leveled. I don't even know if from what I hear, the town's not even there anymore. I hear it's gone. The Weather Service in Jackson rates it now, saying strong EF4, possibly could be EF5. But in order to rank a tornado of that magnitude, it takes more research and more surveys. And I'm sure Tim Marshall, who actually lives down in Flower Mound, Texas, is one of the leading people in the country when it comes to doing storm surveys. I'm sure he's either there or he will be there in the coming days. Special thank you, though, to all of the first responders. And a lot of these first responders on Friday night were storm chasers. A lot of them cut their storm chase off. We had storm chasers from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, all these areas. They've gotten to where they now chase over in a larger area, and they cut their chase off in the middle of the night there to help these people, to help these victims. And that was an incredible storm. I would love to do a study on that particular storm, because it's just incredible what was taking place that night. But yeah, my family and friends all okay. But those people over there certainly do need your prayers and need your support. I'm sure that the Red Cross, I'm sure that there are places out there in which you can donate to. I would love to do some type of a fundraiser here on my page, but I don't know if I'm allowed to do that or not, because I am associated with News Channel 6. But I'm sure my general manager wouldn't have a problem. So that might be something that I'll look at perhaps in the coming days. But this time of year, I'm super busy myself with covering weather, and we haven't quite gotten into the crosshairs here yet. We've been real close out here in Northwest Texas, but the weather pattern is super active right now. At some point in time, I fear our luck's going to run out. All right, so let's see. Hasn't it been? Let's see. Darren says, hasn't it been 3K plus days since EF5 rating? What does that mean? 3,000 days? Is that what you're trying to say? I don't know. I know it's been a long time, Darren, since we've had an EF5 rating. I don't even know the last one that was. You probably know more about that than I do. All right, so let's talk about the weather setup. Unfortunately, across the Deep South, again this afternoon, there's going to be more severe weather. There's already some severe weather breaking out. There's already tornado watches across South Louisiana, Central and South Louisiana. And unfortunately, you're probably going to see that threat extend over into Mississippi later on this afternoon and tonight. But it looks like this time the risk for severe weather, the greatest risk that is, will be south of the areas that were impacted on Friday night. So yeah, and that may be possible, Doug. And I'll show some of these questions here in just a minute. But let's go over and let's look at what's going to be taking place today. Give me a second as I pull up my sources here, and then we'll get to talking about what's going to be happening over there to our east once again today. But weather is weather, and people get excited about it, and they like to know a little bit about what is going on. So this is the convective outlook. The Storm Prediction Center, which is located in Norman, Oklahoma, issues these convective outlooks every single day. More days than not they don't have many risk out, but then you get a couple days and couple periods, especially this time of the year, where they start issuing these types of, I don't know what's trying to update there on my computer, but that does not need to be there. I have no idea why. Oh, I do apologize, people. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. All right. Anyway, so the Storm Prediction Center has, and I don't always show these, but especially when I'm doing TV weather, because I do my own convective outlooks. The Storm Prediction Center issues these every day. They do a day 1, day 2, and a day 3 outlook, and then they'll have an extended outlook, and I'll show you that in a moment. Which there is a highlighted area out our way later on this week. But the red area is what's considered a level 4 moderate risk. The risks go as such. The green is what's called a level 1 marginal. Level 2 would be slight. Level 3 is enhanced, would be the orange. And then the red is a level 4. And if you ever see a little purple or a magenta color there, or maybe pink, it's one of those kind of purplish colors. That would be high. That would be level 5. Very rarely does the Storm Prediction Center ever go 5, but you do see a couple moderate risk outlooks throughout the year. And this is the second one this weekend. Friday was a moderate risk, and then today is a moderate risk. Now, I do think, they also have these what's called probabilities. Let's go and look at the hail probability, because I believe, just looking at things, that the greatest risk for severe weather this afternoon, the greatest hazard is going to be hail. And you can see they have damaging hail potential there between Jackson, Mississippi, over to Alexandria, Louisiana, over along the Louisiana-Mississippi border. And by the way, my grandparents are from a little town in South Mississippi, right along the Louisiana border, about right in here. It's called Gillsburg, Mississippi, which is down near Macomb, if you're familiar with that area. But that's the hail potential. And then here's the tornado potential for today. This is from the Storm Prediction Center. And I'm going to explain, well, that's wind. I'm sorry. I want to get tornado. And I'm going to explain why I think that this might be a little bit too high. All right, so the tornado risk is at 15%. Basically, draw a line from Interstate 20. It'd be Vicksburg over to, It'd be a line in Vicksburg over to Meridian, Mississippi. And then from there, maybe kind of over towards Montgomery, Alabama. And where you see these little black lines, that represents a hatched area. And the Storm Prediction Center refers to those hatched areas as potential significant severe weather. I think that potential could be maybe a little bit overdone there. And the reason why I think it could be a little overdone is because the low-level shear today, that's the winds between the bottom layer of the clouds and down to the Earth's surface, while sufficient for tornadoes, really isn't as strong as it was on Friday. But that said, I still think there could be some tornadoes over there today, and maybe even a couple of significant ones. But I don't think that it's going to be the same as it was on Friday. You just don't have this. That was an extreme event, and you just don't have the same amount of low-level wind shear today as you had on on Friday. Now, there is a tornado watch out. And this is a moderate tornado watch, moderate potential of tornadoes over there. It basically runs from, near just east of Houston, Texas, east of College Station. So if you have students down in College Station, you're fine. South of Shreveport up to just about Monroe, and it does include Alexandria, Fort Polk, just north of Lake Charles and Lafayette, and just west of Baton Rouge. We'll probably see this tornado watch this afternoon extended a little further over to the east to include basically all of South Mississippi and then over into South Alabama. You can see there on this particular radar image, we already do have some weather. Let's see if there's any warnings out. You got a couple severe thunderstorm warnings over that way. Let's I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's pull up the radar here. And once I pull up the radar, then we can kind of see what's going on over in that area. Once again, I do realize that this is not my viewing area, but as I was saying a moment ago, this is something that I do want to try to do a better job of focusing on. And I'm certainly not trying to be Ryan Hall or anybody like that, although those guys do a really good job, and I'm not trying to be them. I've got my own thing to have to worry with over here. But what I do want to do is raise awareness. That's what my main feature here is, just to raise awareness of what's going on in other parts of the country too, provide education, so when we do get this stuff, you kind of have a better understanding of it. All right, so here is what I want to do. I'm going to add the my radar feature to this, so y'all can see that. So there is the radar there, and this is focused over in Louisiana. A couple warnings out this afternoon already. One southeast of Shreveport. These are what we call elevated thunderstorms. I know you've heard me talk about these before. Those thunderstorms, that one in particular, that southeast of Shreveport, that is a storm that is forming in the cooler air above a warm front. And when that happens, they're based up higher in the atmosphere. We get those out here some, especially this time of year. And as they're based up higher in the atmosphere, the chances for them to produce significant severe weather goes down. They can still produce some pretty good hailstones, but typically they're not super big. But we had some elevated storms in Burnt Burnett the other night that produced some big hailstones. So it can happen. Now here's a big supercell that's kind of down towards Jasper, Texas, northeast of Houston, and kind of northwest of Lake Charles. That's a big supercell. And now this one is probably right on the warm front, which is kind of currently trying to lift northward. And what a warm front is the opposite of a cold front. Warm front typically tries to move northward. Cold front moves southward. A warm front moves in general northward. And as it does so, it brings warm, moist air in along and behind it. Now, ahead of it, the air is usually cooler, and you see some elevated thunderstorms. But along that warm front, oftentimes these storms have access to that warm, moist air, and especially if there's not any storm south of it to impede it, the rotation or the spin increases along those warm fronts. So that kind of changes the game sometimes. So even if you don't have ideal low-level wind shear, you can certainly still get, you always have to pay attention to a storm that's riding along a boundary, because again, they change the game up, and they help increase the spin in the lower levels of the atmosphere, so you can get tornadoes oftentimes. Matter of fact, the storm on Friday night that crossed central Mississippi, I believe it rode some type of a boundary. It just looked like it to me that it was doing it, and it really, the low level shear environment Friday night was already really good. But then you threw a little boundary into place. There's just no telling what the shear was like along that boundary. Just sitting there gobbling up what we call streamwise vorticity. And it just produced and produced. You don't see them like that very often. So we're looking at the rotational velocity. This is out of Fort Polk, Louisiana. It's a good way. That storm that's done near Jasper is a good way away from the radar site. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm actually thinking about going with a different radar program too. I'm not real crazy about Radar Omega. I'm thinking about switching over and going to another one that's called GR Level 2. I'm thinking about doing that one instead because I just like their graphics better. So it just seems to be it's a little more expensive than this system, but I seem to like it a little bit better. So see, I'm trying to click on another radar site and it won't even let me do it. So anyway, but that's what the radar looks like. There is a little rotation, but that's a long way from the radar site. But as these storms make their way eastward this afternoon, and again, if they're riding that warm frontal boundary, they will have the chance to spin and perhaps produce some tornadoes. But let's talk a little bit more about why, I think that that could be the 15% from the Storm Prediction Center, maybe just a little bit on the high side. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, it could be just a little bit high. And I'm not going to stay on with this all afternoon. And I've got some things I've got to go do. I've got a couple yards I've got to go cut here this afternoon. But, I will try to have some coverage perhaps this evening of this event. Once I get done, I can get home and start working on that some. So this is with a computer model that I like to look at when we're looking at short-term stuff. It's called the HRRR computer model. I talk about this a lot. And this is showing what the radar might look like. And again, this is not here in our part of the world or my part of the world. This is going to be southeast. And it's generally, my parents right now, they still live over there in Mississippi. My sister lives in Arkansas. I live out here in Texas, and we have for a long time. And my parents, for whatever reason, chose to stay right where they're at. They didn't move. All right, so there's what your radar might look like. This will be about 4 or 5. Here's 6 o'clock. Now notice that we do have a couple of those big supercells along or just south of that frontal boundary, that warm frontal boundary. Your warm front probably, at this point in time, it's probably just a hair maybe north of where you see those big supercells, or it could be right along where those big supercells are. Kind of from about Natchez, Mississippi over to about Columbia, Mississippi. It just seems like that area in southeast Mississippi always gets those gnarly, nasty tornadoes. And then north of there, you see, probably those elevated hail-producing thunderstorms. We can continue to look at this. Looks like a hail-producing storm around 7 o'clock near Jackson, Mississippi. And you got those supercells over in southeast Mississippi there. And it looks like this evening there still could be a couple supercells that try to cross the southern part of Mississippi. So that's what that looks like. All right, so now let's look at the tornado parameters over there this evening. Now, I do think that these are going to be pretty good, but I think what they're so good for is because there's a lot of what we call instability in the atmosphere. And what the significant tornado parameter does is it takes into account an atmosphere that would be conducive for thunderstorms to produce tornadoes if they can interact with it. It shows off instability. It shows off shear. And you can see kind of where those colors, the northern edge of those colors is where the warm front would be. And then you can see in the afternoon and the evening how those colors really increase across the southern part of Mississippi. And if we look at what a sounding would look like, this is what if you could launch a balloon in that environment, this is what the model depicts as it looking like. The red line shows temperatures. Notice how they go left. That indicates a temperature profile that's really cold above the Earth's surface. The green represents dew point temperatures, both of which are slanting left. This line here is that would be what we call CAPE, convective available potential energy. That's what we call fat CAPE, which is indicative of big hail. And these little flag things you see over here, that shows the wind directions and speeds. Now, at the Earth's surface, right there where my cursor is, that would show a southeasterly wind at the Earth's surface. And that is that's what we call a backing wind at the Earth's surface. And that is something that, typically speaking, is pretty significant for tornadoes. And then you can see how everything veers around. That's a really good veering wind profile for supercells. Now, you draw a line with that. You do plots. And this over this way here, this is called a hodograph. And if you look, there's my hodograph. All right, so you start with this cursor here is at 0. That would be the Earth's surface. You'd plot that at one position, and you would go on up. This would be on up into the atmosphere, a couple thousand feet above it, and then this shows the upper level winds. All right, when the hodograph line is stretched like that, that tells me that the upper level winds are strong. And it also shows which direction the winds are coming from in general. So you got a westerly wind up here. This is still a westerly wind, but it's a stronger wind, and that's why it's actually this is a weaker wind up top, and that's why it's dropped off. So I'm not too worried about this part of it. But what I'm worried about more, this is called the critical angles here. That's at 57. I think the threshold is 45. I think anything above 45, I think, is pretty significant. I can't remember what the number is, but that does show a turning with the wind. Notice how it goes from south to west here. So that does show a loop, but it's not like it was. Like a good hodograph would have these kind of a little more left than this before it turns back to the right. So what that indicates is the low-level wind shear isn't extremely strong. In fact, if I look at it's measured, low-level wind shear is measured in storm relative velocity, and that's showing 0 to 1, and that's what you worry about is the low-level. Shows at 239, which that's not bad. That's still pretty good. I mean, I certainly do think there could be some tornadoes over there. Don't get me wrong today. It just doesn't look as good to me as it did on Friday. But of course, Friday was kind of an extreme situation. Now, this is going to be probably contaminated because there's storms in this area here. Yeah, that's contaminated. That does us no good. So just by looking at things, in my opinion, this to me looks like more of a hell event for central Mississippi. And that's a pretty good looking sounding there, a decent looking hodograph there, with some tornado potential across especially south central and southeast Mississippi. That to me looks like the best area. Then maybe over into south and kind of western Alabama. So, I mean, I kind of agree. I do agree with the moderate risk, at least for hell, and some tornado potential over there today too. I do look for some watches. So, all right, well, I've been on here for quite some time now. We don't have a lot of viewers, which I didn't expect us to have a whole lot of viewers this afternoon. I am going to, like I say, I've got some stuff I've got to go do, and I'm going to be out of the loop for at least the next probably 2 to 3 hours. But I should be back by this evening, and I would be able to perhaps do some weather coverage here with some storm chasers over that way. The terrain that these storms are in today is not very good. Friday night they were in a great terrain to see. Today they're kind of more what we call the piney woods, which is a lot of pine trees down there, so it'd be very, very difficult to see anything in those areas. But those guys who chase over in that area, they know how to do it, and they get in position. So but I do appreciate you guys joining me here this afternoon. Oh yeah, I told you I was going to show you the risk for us later on in the week. And again, I don't show the Storm Prediction Center products that often. I do maybe sometimes on my stream I will. But like if you ever watch me on TV, you'll notice that I don't show those. And the reason that I don't is because I do my own what's called convective outlooks, all right? I do my own severe weather risks. Anybody that you turn to on TV will have a what am I trying to say here? They'll show this. They'll show the convective outlooks. Whether it's right or wrong, they just show it. It's like these people, these meteorologists don't have a backbone, or maybe they don't understand how to forecast severe weather, and they just go on what somebody else says. I don't know what they do, but they most of them do this. Bigger markets, it doesn't matter. They show this. And there's nothing wrong with that, but in my opinion, and I try to teach the guys that come in, these new guys that come in and work under me, be your own meteorologist. Be different. Notice the little things in the atmosphere that produce severe weather, and draw your own thing. But with that said, there is a situation later on in the week where and it remains this active weather pattern where there's a system around Thursday and Friday. We do warm up again, and we see humidity increase, and that could produce a round of severe weather Thursday into Friday in this little yellow area you see here. It's still a few days away, and a lot can and will change between now and then. So I don't get too focused on the outlooks, especially this far out. When it comes to severe weather across this part of the country, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a situation where it looks like 5 or 6 days out we're going to get slammed. And even 3 days out, it looks like we're going to get slammed. And then you get to the day before the event, and poof, it's gone. It's really hard to forecast severe weather in this part of the country because we deal with what's called a cap. And little things, a little shift here or there can make or break. Our station has a policy for us to issue these first alert weather days. They like for us to do it 3 days out, and it's just I tell them it's impossible to do that. So a lot of times I don't even issue one till the day of because I'm just not confident in it. And I hate busting on forecasts, and I really hate busting on first alert weather day forecast. But it's really more of a promotional thing than anything else. It's for promotions. Our sister station KSWO is probably a little bit bigger on it than we are. We do still kind of share some resources with them up there, but they're a little more push first alert weather days than we do. But we do them some. But just my general manager isn't as pushy on that. So that's good that he kind of lets us kind of handle that. My news director, she's a good lady too. So. All right, well, I don't have anything else. We'll watch out. It is that time of the year. The weather pattern is active, and it's been a while. It's been really several years since we've seen weather patterns like this. We finally kicked that La Nina out of here. So the weather patterns have gotten. It's been this whole winter and even the early spring. You've just seen. Tanner, we'll have to watch Hammond. I think a lot of that's going to be just north of you, but it is a close call. But the weather pattern this winter and early spring has been so active. You're seeing a lot of storms that just paraded across California, and it kind of looks like that might continue at least into early April. The interesting thing to watch for, I think, moving ahead will be what does late April and May look like? Typically speaking, the peak of the tornado season comes in May. But the last 5 years or so, and a lot of that's been dominated by La Nina, there just really hasn't been much of a May severe weather season. The jet stream has gotten weak, and we've transitioned to summer. So it'll be interesting to see with La Nina gone this year, what does late April and May look like? I'll say this, I have looked at some long-range information. And, this far out, it's probably not highly accurate, but I have looked at some long-range information that shows that jet stream doing exactly what it's done over the last 4 or 5 years and poof, going away and shifting into Canada. But it's a long way out, and the chances of the model being right that far out are pretty low, but we'll see what happens. But I do expect active severe weather into at least early to maybe mid-May, April, and that typically brings it more out towards us too here. Remember, our biggest tornado event we ever had on the Red River was, April 10th, 1979. So, early April, early to mid-April into early May, is a crucial time in our part of the country to watch for severe weather. So, all right. Well, I do appreciate you joining me here this afternoon. I will be watching the weather for my friends and family back east. Like I said, I got some things to do. I know the guys over there will be watching. Our Storm Chaser buddies are over there already getting ready for the chase here. We'll keep an eye on it. But I hope y'all have a great Sunday afternoon, and I'll try to do some updates this evening if I can. But if not, I will see you tomorrow on News Channel 6. Everybody enjoy your Sunday afternoon. It is beautiful weather here. A little bit cool, and it's going to be a little cool early this week, but it's not going to last long. But a little cool outside. Actually, 60s feel pretty good, but the wind's kind of chilly. So, but I'll